Kenny, they turn the heat on for you?
Not even cold though yet.
I'll bring this meeting to order. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, adoption of the agenda, moved by Councillor DeRose, seconded by Councillor Kenny, that council approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Adoption of the minutes, moved by Councillor Decker, seconded by Councillor Hanley. That council approve the minutes as presented. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Mayor's report. On Tuesday, October 12th, Councillor Neal and I attended the virtual One Thorold meeting. Items discussed included the formation of a Truth and Reconciliation Subcommittee, which Councillor Neal will chair, neighborhood hubs, upcoming food drives, communications subcommittee update, as well as an update from the Affordable Housing Subcommittee, which Councillor Neal sits on. Preparations are also underway for the Thorold Leadership Prayer Breakfast on Tuesday, November 23rd, time and venue to be confirmed. It'll take place between 7 and 9 a.m. They're not sure yet if it'll be in person or virtual, but that will be communicated shortly. This year's theme is Peace of the City. On Thursday, October 14th, Marco Marino, Economic Development Manager, and I met virtually with Michelle Sergi, Commissioner of Planning and Development Services at the Niagara region. She began in this role at the region on July 19th, and this was not only a meet and greet opportunity, but also a chance to raise issues relating to our city, which are especially important as the region goes through the new official plan process. We will be hosting a flag raising on Friday, October 29th at 10:30 a.m., raising the Legion Poppy flag to launch the start of the Poppy campaign, which runs from the last Friday in October to November 11th, Remembrance Day. 2021 marks the 100th anniversary of the Remembrance Poppy in Canada. Our Town and Gown Subcommittee has been working extremely hard to deal with off-campus student issues in residential areas, particularly high-density areas like the Winterberry-Juneberry area. We meet weekly. Our last meeting was on October 13th, and our next meeting will be tomorrow, where we review progress and fine-tune our strategy. We are seeing improvements and continue to work effectively with our community partners, Brock University Student Union, Brock Security, Niagara College, Niagara Regional Police Services, Regional Bylaw, and Regional Waste Management to monitor, patrol, and enforce infractions. Dr. Hergy presented the latest public health COVID-19 status update on Friday, October the 15th, with the next one scheduled for Friday, October 29th at 2 p.m. Once again, these sessions are live streamed on the Niagara Region website. As mentioned previously, since September 22nd, Ontarians will need to be fully vaccinated, 2 doses plus 14 days, and provide proof of vaccination along with photo ID to access certain public settings and facilities. Detailed information is available on the provincial website at covid19.ontario.ca. Beginning on October 15th, the province released the new enhanced vaccine certificate with a QR code that businesses and organizations can scan using the Verify Ontario app. The enhanced vaccine certificate is an easier and more convenient way to have your proof of vaccination verified. The Thorold Sports Runway of Recognition 14th Annual Gala Award Ceremony was held at John Michael's Banquet and Event Center last evening. Councillors Neal, Sentence, Decker, and Kenny were also in attendance, along with Regional Councillor Whalen, who chairs the Runway of Recognition Committee and was the event MC. Congratulations to all runway inductees as well as all the award recipients. It was an excellent event as always, which unfortunately was only be able to run at half capacity due to COVID-19 restrictions. Thorold Community Theater is proud to present And Then the Lights Went Out. This exciting new performance will air from November the 12th at 7 p.m. until November 30th at 11:59 p.m. Due to COVID-19 uncertainties, they are stepping off the stage and into the sound booth for this one-of-a-kind radio drama performance, thanks to a Niagara Region Tourism Adaptation and Recovery Fund grant. And the City of Thorold supported this grant application, and Marco Marino, our Economic Development Manager, worked hard on that grant application as well. This allowed them to purchase the new sound equipment necessary to expand their theatrical offerings. Please visit the Thorold Community Theater website for more information and to purchase your listening pass. That's thoroldtheater.ca. Please visit the City of Thorold website, thorold.ca. Under Living Here, scroll down to Coyotes for important information due to recently reported concerns within the city. These type of concerns are being experienced across Niagara. The PIC number 4, Public Information Center number 4 for the Ecological Park Conceptual Master Plan Development in Port Robinson will be held tomorrow, Wednesday, October 20th, from 5 to 7 p.m. at Fire Station 3 in Port Robinson. It's Waste Reduction Week. This week aims to educate, engage, and empower Canadians to reduce waste in their daily lives. Let's start by celebrating the approximately 16% reduction in waste going to the landfill since the start of every other week garbage collection 1 year ago here in Niagara. It is also Small Business Week in Canada, which runs from October 17th to 23rd. Please get out and support our small businesses, not only this week, but every week. They are the backbone of our community and all communities across Canada, not only supplying goods and services, but also supporting community events, minor sports, the arts, and so much more. They need our support now more than ever as we move into the recovery phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. In closing, on behalf of Thorold City Council, I would like to extend our heartfelt condolences to the family and friends of Regional Councillor Sandy Bellows, who passed away on Monday, October the 11th, after a courageous battle with cancer. She will be missed. And that's the end of my mayor's remarks. Public meetings. Up first, we have Brandon Graham, Landex Developments, proposed zoning bylaw amendment, city-initiated housekeeping amendment. The public meeting is being held pursuant to the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended. The city has initiated a housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment to zoning bylaw 60 2019 to address the following. Align the zoning of Artisan Ridge Phase 2 to Artisan Ridge Phase 1. Correction to the zoning at Cottameyer Road and Merritt Road. Permitting accessory structures in future development, FD zone. Removal of solid waste disposal assessment requirements in Section 14 area-specific regulations, and minor corrections to a reference in Part 11, Environmental Zones, a definition table and reference. Council will receive and consider all comments received at the public meeting. No decision on this application is being made this evening. Zoning bylaw amendment. Any of the following no later than 20 days after giving notice may appeal the decision by filing with the city the notice of appeal that must set out the reasons for the appeal accompanied by the tribunal's fee. The applicant, a person or public body who before the amendment and bylaw were passed made oral submissions at the public meeting or written submissions to council, and the minister. If a person or public body did not make an oral submission at a public meeting or provide written submissions to council before the bylaw was passed, the tribunal will determine if there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. For further information on appeals and/or preserving your appeal rights, please speak with the city planner. Up first, who's going first? I got Brandon Graham, Landex, you're up first.
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that planning staff go first, as it's a public meeting, and Brandon can speak as someone who is in support or opposition of the amendment.
That's okay. We'll go that route. That makes sense. So Denise, you're up first, Manager of Planning Services.
Thank you, and I'm just going to share my screen, so just bear with me a moment. All right, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for those participating in the meeting that don't know me, my name is Denise Landry, and I'm with the city's Planning and Development Services Department. This evening, I'll be doing a brief presentation on the proposed city-initiated housekeeping amendment to Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 60/2019. The amendment consists of site-specific changes, general changes, as well as technical changes. So first, I'm going to address the site-specific changes, then the general, and then I'll go over the technical changes that we're proposing. So first up, Artisan Ridge Phase 2 subdivision that you see outlined in the yellow and green was draft plan approved at the end of 2019. And this was around the same time that the city's new comprehensive zoning bylaw was approved by council. Artisan Ridge owners, through the commenting period of the new zoning bylaw, had requested the same zoning be applied from phase 1 to phase 2. The same zones were applied to phase 2, but the site-specific provisions were accidentally omitted. So the amendment being discussed tonight proposes to rectify the situation and include the site-specific provisions for phase 2. The site-specific provisions are minor and will facilitate what is already draft plan approved for Artisan Ridge Phase 2. The next site-specific change we have is on your screen before you. We've got this lot located south of Merritt Road and west of Cotmire Road, and this is in the Port Robinson West subdivision. The property is designated in the official plan as Port Robinson West Urban Commercial, and the property was incorrectly zoned Prestige Employment M1 in the new zoning bylaw. And the consultants that are representing the owners of this property identified the mistake and brought it forward to staff. So in order to conform to the official plan, staff is proposing to rezone the property to mixed-use commercial C6 zone. Now we're going to go into some broader proposed changes that we've got for the zoning bylaw. The official plan does not permit development within areas of Port Robinson West until additional planning studies have been completed. So as such, these lands are zoned future development and only permit existing uses on the property. And the future development lands that are zoned future development are identified in gray on the screen, and these two images capture majority of Port Robinson West neighborhood and secondary plan. So through implementation of the new zoning bylaw 60/2019, in March of this past year, the LPAT, formerly LPAT, now known as the Ontario Land Tribunal, they put the majority of our zoning bylaw into effect. And since this time, staff have had the opportunity to use the bylaw. And by using the bylaw, this is where you sometimes identify concerns or issues that need to be addressed. So throughout these past few months, we've had requests from landowners to erect accessory structures or buildings within the future development zoned areas. And right now, the future development zoning does not permit any accessory structures or buildings. So staff took a look at this and we determined that we should be permitting these for the residential dwellings in this area. And as such, we're proposing to include regulations in the future development zone to allow landowners to build accessory buildings and structures to their residential homes. So to continue on with kind of the broader changes, in front of you, the area shown by the blue arrow and outlined in black, that is the former Welland Canal. These lands were no longer used as Welland Canal many years ago, and they were filled in with residential waste in about the first half of the 1900s. So this area is identified in the city's official plan as a solid waste disposal site due to the fill of the area, at least somewhat of it being residential waste. So the zoning bylaw currently requires development applications within 500 meters of the closed waste disposal site to conduct a study to investigate the impact of development on methane migration, geotechnical conditions, and leachate migration. So the 500 meters surrounding the former canal is identified in the hashed lines on top of the land that you can see. So it encompasses a significant portion of central Thorold around the downtown. So staff have had discussions with provincial ministry staff, and we've determined that a study assessing the aforementioned items, so leachate and migration, leachate and methane, and the geotech, we determined that for requiring that study for every building permit within the 500 meter radius is not needed. So as such, staff is recommending removal of the requirement in the zoning bylaw. So the hashed area you see on the zone, we're proposing to remove, and the regulations that accompany this, that require this study. The official plan policy would remain in effect, and that can be applied on a site-by-site basis through planning applications where the closed landfill may be a cause for concern for potential development. So by taking it out of the zoning bylaw, that will mean that applications that just come forward for building permit will no longer have to do this study. But by keeping it in the official plan, any applications that come forward for a Planning Act application for development, if we need to ask for that study, we have the ability to ask for it. So moving on to some of just the minor corrections that we're tweaking. There's a reference in the environmental zone sections that we've identified was incorrect. We're removing the term medical from licensed marijuana production facilities, as production facilities no longer need to be for medical marijuana. They can be for regular recreational use. We're revising the definition of front lot line. And we've also are proposing a correction to a table reference in the general regulations section. It's just an inaccurate reference. So the application, or sorry, not the application, the proposed amendment has been circulated as per the Planning Act to internal staff as well as agencies. We've also circulated the proposed amendment to the landowners, those two site-specific properties that I identified at the beginning of my presentation. So we have circulated specifically to those landowners so that they can take a look at what we're proposing. And both of them are well aware. It's through discussions with them that we are bringing forward these changes. And so we've received no concerns from city departments or external agencies on the proposed changes to the zoning bylaw. All of the information for council and members of the public's information can be found on our city website under planning and development, under open house and public meetings. That's where you can access the notice as well as the material that details the specific changes that I went over this evening. And so staff will be bringing forward a recommendation report at a future council meeting following this public meeting. So that's everything that I've got for the presentation. Thank you, Mayor and Council and members of the public. Of course, I'm available now to answer any questions that Council or the Mayor have for me. Thank you.
thank you, Denise. So I'll open the floor to questions for Denise, and I got Councillor Hanley up first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Denise. Denise, in regards to the closed landfill, I didn't catch it there. Have we actually tested the lands there? Has there been testing or just methane for leachate in any specific areas? Or are we just assuming? I didn't hear you mention that there's actually been previous testing of any results. That's a significant area.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Hanley, that we don't have a lot of information on this area as it was closed, or I'm hearing around the 1930s. So it was quite some time ago. And my understanding is we don't have a lot of information. It was more out of safety for development proposals that are coming forward to ensure that those concerns are not brought forward.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, my question, just on a little bit of clarity. You said we weren't voting on this, but later on in the discussion reports, this same thing comes up, and then in the first reading of bylaws, it comes up. So I just like some clarity. We're hearing now, but later on, so we're not voting on those discussion reports in the discussion reports. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to Councillor Kenny, what you're going to be seeing later on in the agenda, that is a housekeeping amendment to correct Artisan Ridge zoning under the old zoning bylaw. So that was a housekeeping amendment that had a public meeting at the last meeting and is now being brought forward for recommendation. The public meeting that we're having tonight is not, we're not bringing a recommendation this evening. So they're two separate amendments. One is to address Artisan Ridge zoning under the old bylaw, and then the presentation I did tonight in the public meeting is partially to address Artisan Ridge zoning under the new zoning bylaw.
So, but they're both affected by the same bylaw, correct? Because the same numbers on both.
Through the mayor to the councillor, the presentation, or sorry, the report that's going forward tonight is in reference to the old bylaw, and the presentation tonight was on the new bylaw.
Okay.
Are there further questions for Denise? Go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just in regards to, is there, if I can ask, like, is there many of these housekeeping issues that we have to deal throughout the city? Because you also mentioned that it was one of these mistakes. Is this going to be occurring further down the road? Because I think this was we had a public meeting one time, same type of reference deal, and it was made that it's a housekeeping issue. Is this something that's going to be ongoing? Like, we just finished doing a comprehensive zoning bylaw, and are there other errors that we're going to run into? Supposedly mistakes were made.
Through the mayor to Councillor Hanley, it is very common for planning departments to do tweaks and changes to their zoning bylaw as they implement it. So it was a brand new bylaw that we prepared, that until you really are applying the bylaw to the site and to the city, you're not really you might not necessarily find small changes. So it's very common across all municipalities for planning departments to bring housekeeping amendments once or twice a year to fix corrections or changes that are identified. So it's definitely a common thing, and I would anticipate, down the line, 6 months to a year, we would most likely be bringing another housekeeping amendment. Sometimes those are even to address provincial regulations when we have to update our bylaw, or simply just where we find things are not working and we just need to make the bylaw better.
Thank you. Thank you. It just seems that we spend a significant amount of time on this, getting to a comprehensive zone bylaw, official plan, what have you, and we seem to be doing a lot of housekeeping in between. Thanks very much, so for your answer. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you, Denise. And I'll now move on to our second presenter, which is Brandon Graham from Landex Developments. And Brendan, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor Ugolini and Council. My name is Brendan Graham. I'm from Landex Developments. I'm a representative of Marydale Homes and Downing Street, who are the developers of the Artisan Ridge Subdivision. I'm happy to be here today as the second phase of this draft approved subdivision continues moving towards registration. And I simply wanted to voice support tonight for staff's work on the housekeeping amendment and answer any potential questions from council regarding this process. So,
Thank you, Brendan. And I'll open the floor if there's any questions for Brendan from Land X Developments. Seeing none, Brendan, thank you for your presentation. Short but sweet, but thank you so
excellent.
much.
Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Public participation, public input. Now, at this time, is there anyone online who wishes to speak on the applications received? Please indicate to the clerk your desire to speak. Please provide your name and address for the public record. Is there anybody at this time that's online that wishes to speak? There is no one. I'll read it one more time. Now, at this time, is there anyone online who wishes to speak on the applications received? Please indicate to the clerk your desire to speak. Please provide your name and address for the public record. And there is no one. Okay, thank you, Joanne. Closing remarks and closing of the meeting. This fulfills the requirements of the Planning Act pursuant to Section 34. Council will consider staff's recommendation report at a future meeting. Please provide your contact information and indicate to the clerk at clerk@thorold.ca if you wish to receive notice of council's decision. Alternatively, a letter requesting to receive notice of council's decision may be sent to the clerk. As such, the public meeting portion of this application is now closed at 6:56. Okay, now we move on to presentations. And up first, we have Joey Hewitt, Thorold representative on the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. And is Joey there? I don't see there's. Is there? She's not on my screen. Is she putting it on? Oh, there you are. Hi, Joey. Welcome.
Good evening.
The floor is yours.
I'm Joey Hewitt from the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. Quick history of the JAC. 2003, we had our inauguration year. We are 6 municipalities that came together to create the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. And our committee includes Town of Lincoln, Township of West Lincoln, Town of Pelham, City of Thorold, Town of Niagara on the Lake, and Town of Grimsby. This year in 21, our committee expanded. We now include City of Port Colborne. We welcome Port Colborne and will assist them to ensure compliance with AODA regulations. We will work to develop positive relationships within the local community. The committee has been fairly active considering COVID has put the kibosh on most of our activities. We've continued to do auditing of municipal facilities. The committee originally did audits from 2003 to 2006. We're doing refresher audits at the request of staff to ensure AODA compliance. This year, we're auditing 5 facilities per municipality. This also includes parks and trails, as well as buildings. We prepared refresher training courses in AODA compliance areas and have provided it to JAC staff contacts. We welcome items also for our JAC Facebook page to promote the efforts of the municipalities. We've also been working with the Town of Lincoln's Age Friendly Committee on a joint events guide, and they hope to have that out early in 2022. We continue to promote our accessibility award. We use an audit checklist with each business, which includes wheelchair access such as ramps, automatic doors, visual access such as large print and possibly braille menus in restaurants. Also includes employment practices, hiring of people with disabilities, and customer service. To date, 10 businesses have received the award throughout our catchment area. If a business scores 80% or higher, they receive the We Are Accessible Award. Currently, 22% of the Canadian population has a disability. The deadline of 2025 for full accessibility compliance in municipalities is fast approaching. This means goods and services will need to be accessible, such as customer service, information and communications, new facilities and services. We will continue to work with staff and council to ensure compliance with AODA, and we are available to answer any questions or concerns and to review site plans. We do ask council to assist us in ensuring the municipality meets the 2025 deadlines. We've been given to understand any municipality that is not in compliance will be fined up to $10,000 a day. As taxpayers, we really want to make sure that doesn't happen. We also ask council to promote the We Are Accessible Awards to your local businesses. And lastly, we ask council to continue to communicate with us about accessibility concerns and your decisions. And I thank council and mayor for allowing me to give you this little presentation.
Thanks so much, Joe. It's great having you here, and I'm going to open the floor for any questions or remarks from our city council. Councillor Hanley.
It's a great presentation. You know, the city of Thorold, we've been proactive. I believe we're just doing beautiful playground in the refurbished Battle Beaver Dams Park, where there'll be a wheelchair accessible swing, I believe, available there. We're presently doing refurbishing of the Darlene Ryan Community Center, which will be fully accessible, handicap accessible, and we're trying to meet the ODA. And I know the city, we've done renovations at our city hall with new counters and for approachability in our wash facility. So I think the city, I'm not sure how far we are along, but I'm sure that we have been on top of it, and I appreciate you coming too, Joey. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanley. I think Councillor Neal had his hand up. Do you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Joey. Maybe a question to staff. As Councillor Hanley just said, we seem to be doing a very good job. What is the status? Are we going to make it for 2025? And I'm not sure which staff person would want to answer that question.
I'll turn that over to our CAO to start off with, Councillor Neal. Meadows, Delaware.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Neal, we are on track to be compliant by 2025. We made every effort wherever possible, new infrastructure projects that we are working on, and wherever we are touching any major improvements, we are making it accessible. And at this point in time, we are on track to be compliant by 2025. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Neal?
Yeah, maybe a follow-up question as far as businesses and that are concerned. Are we promoting it through the age-friendly committee? Are we promoting it within the city to make sure that businesses are compliant by the same date?
And I'll, can we do we pass that information along to business, and we can do that not only through our social media, but also through our economic development department?
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Neal, we'll make sure that we make sure that information is sent out.
Thank you.
Is there
Thank you.
anyone else that wants to speak? I know Councillor Wilson's our representative on the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. And Joey, it's always good to see you. And I really appreciate your presentation, and come back anytime.
Thank you very much.
Up next, we have Kevin Jacoby, Government Relations Committee, and Sophia Deluca, Administrator of the Niagara Industrial Association. And are they here? Both of them? Three of them. I'm missing one. Who am I missing? Don? And Don Sear. Okay. Hi, Don. Hi, Sophia. And I'm looking for now Kevin. Is he there? Yes, all three of us are here. Thank you for coming to council. And who's going first?
Well, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, and thank you, councillors, for having us today. My name is Don Sear. I'm a professor of finance at Brock University and the chair of the Niagara Industrial Association. I'm here today with my two colleagues, Kevin Jacoby and our operations manager, Sophia Deluca, to tell you a little bit about the Niagara Industrial Association. The association was established in 2007. Kevin is going to go through some details about it. It is a nonprofit and governed by a board of 12 voting members, 2 ex officio members, one of which includes the manager of economic development for Thorold, Mr. Marco Marino. Marco's been a long-time member of the board and has been a great resource for us, and we thank you very much for his time and effort with the Niagara Industrial Association. I'm going to turn things over quickly to Kevin Jacoby. Kevin is a valued board member of the Niagara Industrial Association. He's been in warehousing logistics industry for over 20 years. One of the founders and EDO of Canada BW Logistics, has operations in Niagara Falls and Welland. A very involved community member as well, not just for the Niagara Industrial Association, but also a member of the Welland Pelham Chamber of Commerce, Walker's Advanced Manufacturing Innovation Center, the Buffalo Niagara World Trade Center, and the Binational Logistics Group, ITGO. I'm going to turn things over now to Kevin to give you a little bit of information about the Niagara Industrial Association.
Thank you, Don. And Kevin, you're up.
Yes, thank you very much, Don. Mr. Mayor, councilors, city staff, public, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Our goal here tonight is for those who may not know about the Niagara Industrial Association, is to give you a bit of a primer about what we do and how we try to help each of our communities here in the Niagara region. And for those that do know us, just a bit of a refresher, just so that we can be a resource to the council, to the community, when there are questions about how employment and manufacturing impact our livability and our community efforts. I'm just going to share my screen and go through a brief presentation with you after. So, okay.
It's good.
All right, can everyone see that all right? Perfect. All right. So the Niagara Industrial Association, as Don said, is a nonprofit membership-driven organization that we support the interest and growth of manufacturing here in Niagara. It was formed in 2007 by a group of Niagara manufacturers, and we try to be a voice and link that brings manufacturing, heavy industry, specialty trades, and the services around us together for both the municipalities and the region. Our vision, of course, is to be a united voice serving as a catalyst for member success. And our mission is to identify, lead, and advocate on issues that affect Niagara industry and contribute to our member success. We're nothing without our membership. We're very proud of who we have as members and do our best to represent the interests at large for everyone here. one of the items that we're trying to incorporate here for Niagara, because we are proud to have a bunch of small, medium-sized industry as well as larger, is to create the idea of a Niagara shop floor, that we have the ability, though we may be a number of individual companies, together we are strong and represent a lot of capacity that can be utilized here in Niagara, both to fulfill our needs and to attract opportunities for export development. We also would like to extend our thanks to the mayor, please, in the city of Thorold, for presenting us with this award this past April at our annual general meeting. And it recognized our achievement this year for the community. We're also very proud to welcome the city of Thorold as a membership since 2020. So we really do appreciate the support you have, as well as that of what your staff gives us in our efforts to support industry in Niagara, and in particular here at Thorold. The Niagara Industrial Association is governed by a board of directors. So they're elected every 2 years by the membership itself. And from those directors, we divide ourselves into 4 major committees within the association. Our Business Development Committee, our Governments and Community Relations Committee, Membership and Marketing, Education and Training. They're pretty self-explanatory what we try to do. We try to cover all different aspects with regards to the needs of manufacturing in Niagara. Most importantly, of course, is the idea of discussion, bringing the ability to make the youth coming through our school system aware of opportunities of good, higher paying jobs that they can commit to, and give them the opportunity to explore career paths they may not have been aware of through their guidance system at the school. We also are very proud of our relationship with guidance counselors to give them the resources needed for people to make educated choices on their futures. So at this time, through COVID and everything else that's going on, we still have 245 dedicated manufacturing members here in Niagara. 15 of those members are from Thorold itself. These represent over 800 jobs, and the members' companies in Thorold, which we represent. Some of those companies that we have here, we have is of course the City of Thorold, Hope Report, Lanston, Book Depot, and the others you see on your screen. We're quite a diverse group of businesses offering a wide range of skills and talents. And many of the times that they use the Niagara Industrial Association to develop opportunities between each other to be able to grow and expand on their business opportunities. Our offices are located in St. Catharines, and the hours there in the context, which we'll share the slideshow with city staff to be able to give to the councilors and the mayor. Basically, what we want to do here is make sure that when you are faced with choices about the idea of use of land in Thorold, about the idea of the importance of employment lands and balancing out with other choices that you have, that you take in consideration that we're trying to build a strong, successful community together. These companies represent high-paying jobs, represent opportunities for people to grow, to live, and to be successful here in Thorold and in Niagara in general. We're intertwined here. There's a lot of pressure being put on you as leaders in our community, and we want to make sure that we get an opportunity to be able to help you with insight and understanding of our businesses, and be a conduit to that education, so that when you are asked to make these decisions in the future, that you can come from an informed state. I'm going to keep it short and simple. I'm sure you have a lot on your agenda, but this is basically what we want to talk about. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have with regards to our association, how we can better serve the Thorold community, and how we can do a better partnership that we've already developed with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. So I'm going to open the floor for questions, and I got Councillor DeRose up first.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Kevin, thanks for coming tonight, and thank you to you, Marco Marino, for your efforts with this association. I think it's a great endeavor. Can I just ask you a question, Kevin? Is it who would reach out to you in a situation where there's questions or unfamiliarity, would it be council or staff that you would be have an open line to? Who would you prefer to reach out to you?
Through the mayor, we would accept questions from either level. So from councilors, from the mayor, from staff, we're open for any sort of inquiries. We may not have the answers, but we'd be able to facilitate a conversation with a member that may be able to help you with those processes, those questions may arise.
Thank you, Kevin. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Councillor DeRose. I got Councillor Sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate you coming tonight. You got a great person on there with Marco. He's been a valuable resource for me as well. My question would be, and I've thrown it at him too, we have a lot of industrial land that's just vacant right now in Thorold. You go up Allenberg Road, there's other places in Thorold. And I know we don't own the land, so it's a little more difficult, but I just want to encourage you guys to keep, looking for people to go on those properties, and not, it doesn't have to be small businesses. I said to Marco, think big. I go, I use Amazon or something like that, but I know that's out there, but you got canal, you got rail, you got highway, you've got, just keep going at those places for us, please. And thanks for all your hard work.
Through the mayor, thank you very much, Councillor. Yes, we're very fortunate here in Niagara with our intermodal opportunities. My background is logistics and manufacturing. So we do have that unique thing where we can combine the use of our canal system with rail, with transit, and being a conduit. Within a 10-hour truck drive of Niagara, we have access to 140 million consumers. We have a lot of opportunity here. I think a lot of opportunities that we haven't really fully expanded on yet. But through partnerships with your council, with your staff, and with the other municipalities in the area as well as the region, I think working together, we can present a strong argument for bringing those businesses here. One thing we have to be very careful on is, there are empty employment lands right now, and there's going to be a lot of pressure. We're seeing that in other municipalities for it to be rezoned for other uses. We have to be careful to maintain those employment lands. That we have to build on that, and we have to work together to attract businesses here. We're very proud of our membership. Many of them act as ambassadors for our communities, and they try to help our economic development staff entice businesses to come here. Show them there is a community here, there is kinship, and there are associations that will help them thrive in their business opportunities as well.
I agree. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I want to thank Don, and I want to thank Kevin, and I want to thank Sophia for coming tonight. And I want to continue. We've got a great relationship, and we'll continue building on it, not only in the city of Thorold, but across the Niagara region. And I can see nothing but a bright future ahead. So thank you, everyone. And one thing that really impressed me is working with the schools and the co-op programs. I know a lot of your members are taking advantage of that, and that is a great initiative and a good way to get our youth involved. So once again, thanks so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. We really do appreciate giving us the time to make you aware of what we can offer, and if there's any assistance needed, we're there to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors.
Thank you. Okay, up next, motion to receive and file minutes or adopt recommendations of council committees and boards. Minutes to review for information purposes. I have a mover, Councillor Neal, and a seconder, Councillor Wilson. The council receive and file the minutes of the committees, council boards as presented. Thorold runway recognition. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Minutes to endorse recommendations. Moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Councillor DeRose. That 3 gift cards be used towards the following Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Halloween event. Submit a photo of your decorated home, best costume on a human or on a pet, or your carved pumpkin, etc. and that all submissions will be entered into a draw to win one of 3 $25 gift cards, and that all entries be submitted through Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Facebook page. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, statement by councilors. I have Councilor DeRose on mover, Councilor DeRose, seconded by Councilor Neal. And I'll turn that over to you, Councilor DeRose, on municipal and developer responsibilities for coyotes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I've previously had conversations with staff about the responsibilities of developers in regard to wildlife displacement while developing. We've been informed in the past there were parameters / guidelines in place for builders to follow. My concern is the increase in confrontations close to the city core of Thorold proper. For example, Richmond and Pine, Prince of Wales School, the whole east side of Thorold, Holy Rosary parking lot. So I'm a little bit concerned about the encounters, the information I've been receiving through texts and phone calls. So my motion is that council request the Director of Public Works and Community Services to bring a report back to council, providing clarity on coyote responsibilities and clarification on the role of developers in wildlife displacement. I also had a request from someone that encountered one walking their dog recently about signs, maybe warning signs on the east side, I guess towards the canal. I don't know if that's feasible or if that can be done, but if they keep increasing on that side of town, I think maybe it's an ideal just to give residents with small pets a warning. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor DeRose. So we had a mover, Councilor DeRose, seconder, Councilor Neal. And as well, I mentioned in the mayor's remarks that the city has put up a page on our city website as well. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councilor Decker, Doctor Recruitment Initiatives for City of Thorold. Mover, Councilor Decker, and a seconded, Councilor Sentence, and I'll turn this over to Councilor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just before I go ahead with my request, I just wanted to update that I've been talking with the pharmacists at the Thorold Medical Clinic, and they are getting quotes for renos for the building, and they are implementing the computer-based system, the EML, that all the new doctors are looking for. Also, patients that were Dr. Pringles, they still are without a doctor, and Dr. Sinton will be retiring soon as well. So his patients will be without a doctor as well. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. So this is my request, that council requests the manager of economic development contact the coordinator for the Niagara Region Physician Recruitment and Retention Program to advise of upcoming opportunities with the Thorold Clinic, and that Thorold Council requests Niagara Region to consider incentives or programs that may be available through the program recruitment budget to work with the Thorold Clinic, as their office has the potential of immediately recruiting 1 or 2 doctors, and that council requests the manager of economic development to report back on opportunities for doctor recruitment incentives for the city of Thorold.
Did you want to speak to that before I open the floor, our CIO?
Yeah. So, Councilor Decker, I think the discussion that you had with staff was to request, council should request the Niagara region. So I think, I don't know, is that the intention? The intention is that I can see that the council requests the Niagara region's doctor recruitment program coordinator coordinate with Thorold Clinic in the short term on the possibilities of the attraction of 2 general practitioners. Is that your intention, Councillor?
Well, my request is to get our economic development officer in contact with the Niagara region's physician recruitment and retention program to advise them of what's going on, and to see if there's any incentives that they can offer the Thorold Clinic. I did talk to Christina and Alex of the clinic, and Sue, who's the medical secretary there, that there was potential that Marco or the region would be reaching out to them.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilor.
Okay,
Thank
are
you.
you good with that? Anyone want to speak to that? Go ahead, Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I talked to President Giuliani's office today, and they have 3 new doctors that are full. There's no more room, even though we have 3 new doctors in downtown Thorold. So I agree with Councilor Decker. And I know that when we used to do this, we used to have some incentives from the city's perspective, not just from the region's perspective. So I wouldn't mind seeing an amendment or an addition to your motion to have the city look at incentives from the city's perspective also.
Thank you, Councilor Neal. I think that would be a great idea. And in saying that, with Dr. Giuliani's office, that is true. The new doctors that are there are not taking on any new patients. And with Dr. Sinton retiring in the near future, that is really going to put some pressure on us trying to locate doctors. And I know, been trying to work with the Thorold Clinic, and they really could use our help to get some doctors in the building. And they are looking to do some improvements with the building. And I know there's a huge thing when the doctors are coming that they want the EML system up and running, and they are looking into getting that implemented as soon as possible.
So, Councillor Neal, did you want an amendment there where it says that council requests the Niagara region and City of Thorold to consider incentives or programs? Is that what you want?
That's correct, and I will second that.
No, but first I gotta see if you'll take that as a friendly amendment, Councillor Decker.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, and I already have Councillor Sentence as the seconder on the main motion. Okay, so we're going to speak to that first, the amendment, or no, it's a friendly amendment, so we can speak to the whole motion. Go ahead, Councillor DeRone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I will fully support Councilor Decker in her motion. Further to Councilor Decker's motion this evening, which complements the motion I presented earlier on in the year around the very same issue of doctor recruitment and working with our regional colleagues to identify solutions to keep Thorold at the top of their mind in their dealings. I can only support and appreciate any efforts in this regard and want to collaborate in any way, shape, or that we collaborate in any way, shape, or form with all levels of government and the private sector to maintain and bring new doctors to our great city. I also want to extend a thank you to Manoj Dalwaria, CEO of the City of Thorold, and Marco Marino, our Manager of Economic Development, and Dr. Giuliani for always working to establish a sustainable complement of general practitioners and specialists to support the growing need in our community. They actually together, those 3 help bring the 3 doctors we have. And as you said, Councilor Decker, unfortunately, and Councilor Neal, they are filled up. And one of the reasons is because Dr. Giuliani is slowly passing on his patients. My doctor, Dr. Sinton, is retiring at the end of the month. And I was fortunate enough to find out early enough to get on the list of the 3 new doctors. But I've received so many calls lately from residents that have health issues, and they're concerned because they'll be left without anybody from Dr. Sinton, with Dr. Sinton leaving. And they tried to get on these 3 new doctors list, but unfortunately, as was stated previously, they're pretty well all filled up. So I think we have to get more moving, continue to do this. I think Marco and Manoj have been doing a great job with it, and I think getting the region more involved as we go along is a great idea. I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeRose. I think Councillor Hanley, did you have your hand up?
Yes, sir. Just to say, I'll support it also on that stuff. It's obvious we need doctor recruitment. Dr. Pringle was my doctor. I unfortunately couldn't get in at the 3 doctors in Thorold. I tried to, and before I knew it, they were all gone. So anyways, I did find one in St. Catharines. But unfortunately, they don't take in-office visits. They're doing everything over the line because of COVID. And whereas the doctors that come to Thorold, they're doing in-office visits. So, because I had some health issues and that stuff, and so more doctors to throw, we can get them in, probably more appreciated for myself and many others.
Thank you, Councillor Hanley. Councillor Longo, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to, I guess, Councillor Decker. Your motion speaks to looking to recruit. Is it only for the Thorold Medical Clinic, or are we looking to just recruit doctors to Thorold?
I have been approached by the Thorold Medical Clinic because there's only Dr. Tatzel in there, and they were looking for help from our council to help them recruit doctors to their clinic. That's why they're looking at renovations and updating their computer system. So I guess right now my request is for the Thorold Medical Clinic. Hoping to get a couple doctors in there before Dr. Tatzel retires in the near future as well.
Okay, I can appreciate trying to help the Thorold Medical Clinic, but it is a private practice, and it may be seeming like we're favoring one location over the other. But at any doctor we can find, I don't think we should limit to just one location. But I'll leave it at that. And then the other thing is we're requesting some funding from the city of Thorold to do this. Does anybody have a plan or an idea on where that funding or how much that funding would be? Are we going to leave this to 2022 budget deliberation?
I would turn that over to Manoj. I would guess that we would, Councillor Longo, because it said right now in the motion is just to consider incentives and programs. Okay. So.
Well, right. But if we're going to ask and maybe get somebody and consider an incentive, we need to understand what that incentive is and where it's going to come from. So I think we need to be prepared for that.
Go ahead, Manoj.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, up to this point, from a staff perspective, we understand that Niagara region has a doctors recruitment program, and they help all the municipalities to help for the recruitment of doctors, and they have the budget, they have the mechanism and the staffing to help different clinics, different municipalities to do that. I know in the past, several years back, we had a program with City of Thorold to provide some incentives for the doctors to come to Thorold. Since then, we have not done that. Again, from staff perspective, our approach would be to go and approach the region because they have this specialty, they have staff who have done that, and approach them. And following that, if council so wishes to provide some incentive, staff would need that direction from council, how much money, what needs to be done. And again, I agree that we cannot restrict it to one location only because we don't want to bonus a particular business. It has to be open to all places within the city of Thorold. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you for that answer, CAO. I appreciate that. I may just make a comment. People have asked me this over the years on incentivizing doctors to come. I believe we should leave it with the region to do that. When we start competing head to head with other municipalities, if that became the case, I don't think it's a good way to recruit doctors. I believe we should leave it in the region's hand and let them incentivize and bring doctors to the area. You know what, whether they end up in Thorold, which would be the best, or just anywhere in Niagara, it helps us. So we'd end up competing against larger municipalities and we could be at a disadvantage. And again, paying one profession to come to Thorold just doesn't seem right to me, but that's just my personal opinion.
Okay, so you would like to see that it stay as the original motion at the Niagara region, am I correct, Councillor Longo?
Well, yeah, the Niagara region would fund it. And again, like the CAO said, limiting to one location would be bonusing.
Yeah.
If Thorold Medical Clinic is the best place to go, that's fantastic. But if a doctor wants to come to the city of Thorold and set up in the Pine Plaza or Front Street, all the power to him or her.
Councillor Decker, then are you good with that, to go back to the original motion, and Councillor Neal, and then if there is something that has to come to council in a program, then we can deal with that at a given time. Are you good with that, or I need to...
I'm fine with it.
Are you good with that,
Councillor Decker's
Decker?
fine.
If there's something that has to come forward, and then we can deal with it at that time. You want to leave it as the original motion?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so
But
what?
I do want our economic development officer to work with the Niagara region.
No, he's going
because
to.
I know they haven't had any luck with the region, so I'm
He's
just trying to push to try to get some doctors here in Thorold. So
No.
I'd appreciate the support from council, as I'm sure the residents will as well.
And
you.
he will be there to help for sure. Okay, so we're back to the original motion. Councillor Wilson, go ahead. Okay, we're back to the original.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any problem with our city incentivizing any business to come to Thorold specifically rather than the region. I think we should be competing with other municipalities because the more businesses we have here is a higher reduction in taxes on our residents. So I actually hope to see something like that in the budget from our economic development department. And so if it's doctors as well, so that our aging population can not have to travel so far to go see a physician, I don't see any issue with that. I do agree with not picking specifically a building, but I know you just took it out, Councillor Decker, because I didn't have an opportunity to chat yet, but I would prefer, if possible, that we are able to do our part, and obviously Marco being involved would be good, but I'd like to compete against the other municipalities because being the smaller one, or one of the small ones in the region, we don't always get all the attention. We complain about banks leaving and other, liquor stores and things like that, but I don't understand why we wouldn't want to compete to have doctors that are going to care for the health of our residents. So that's my comment. I think it should stay.
Anyone else? Councillor Hanley.
Can we separate it into two, Mr. Mayor, the original motion and the motion with the amendment?
Well, the two presenters agreed to strike that, and that if something come forward, then we would deal with it. Am I correct? Yeah.
Okay, Nella's good with striking it down. I'm going to go back to the original motion.
It's the original motion, and then if something comes forward in any discussions, then it would come to council, and then council can make a decision. And then we can develop a program because we need to, we can do that whether it's at budget or before budget.
But Mr. Mayor, they struck it down before everybody got the opportunity to speak on it. I don't think that's right.
I'm okay if you want to bring it back as a separate amendment. I would prefer that the city get involved as well. So I'm good, Councillor Hanley, if putting it as a separate second amendment.
Do you want to add that? You've got it as a separate amendment? Okay. We'll do that. So you're gonna move that second amendment, Councillor Hanley?
Okay, I'll move it.
And who's gonna second it? Councillor Wilson?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Yeah, can we just explain what we're voting on?
Okay, so I'll turn it over to the clerk because there's going to be another line in there, so it's a second line after the region one. Okay, go ahead.
Right, so through the mayor to members of council, the additional clause would be that council requests the manager of economic development to report back on any incentives for doctor recruitment for the city of Thorold.
Is that what you want, or do you want to tweak that?
No, it's not what I want. I just want to understand what I'm voting on.
Yeah, no, we can vote on that. We can vote on that separate as well, Councillor Longo.
Yeah, I just would like to know what we're voting on here, because it's gotten a little confusing. Are we voting on bringing doctors to the Thorold Clinic and incentivizing them? If that's what it is, I just need to know what I'm voting on.
That's a separate entity, and that doesn't include that. Am I correct?
Right, through the mayor to members of council, it would be separate. So the first, I believe there was 2 or 3 clauses to Councillor Decker's motion. And then the additional clause would be just a generalization for a report back on opportunities for incentives.
It's not, it's a general. Am I correct? It's sweeping. It's not just relating to the Thorold Clinic, okay? So do you want that read again?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'll get you, why don't we go through the whole motions, okay? Okay, so the first parts of the motion is that council requests that the Niagara Region Doctor Recruitment Program Coordinator coordinate with the Thorold Clinic in the short term on the possibility of the attraction of 2 general practitioners and explore existing regional incentives programming that may be available to that end, and that the regional recruiter report back to Thorold City Council on this initiative, and that council requests Niagara Region to consider incentives or programs that may be available through the program's recruitment budget to work with the Thorold Clinic, as their office has the potential for immediate occupancy of these 2 general practitioners. And then the next part.
Sorry, I was waiting for Councillor Decker maybe to comment. So the additional.
Sorry, I was on mute. So are we going to include then that we can bring this incentive to budget at City Council in 2022?
I'm just gonna let her read the part 3, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So the additional part would be that council requests the manager of economic development to report back on opportunities for doctor recruitment incentives for the city of Thorold.
Thank you.
Does that cover you? Manoj, did you want to speak? Go ahead.
Yeah, just for our clarity for the third point, is there a dollar amount that council has in mind just for our budget deliberations? Thank you.
I don't think there is.
I don't think there is, Manoj, sorry.
I think it's just, they're gonna report back and then a discussion would transpire at that time. Councillor Neal.
Yeah, just if we're gonna wait till budget time, which could be next March, if we're gonna go after doctor recruitment now, then we need, if we're gonna put incentives in, we need to do it sooner than later.
It doesn't, it doesn't say, in part 3, it mentions nothing about the 2022 budget, okay? It doesn't mention budget.
So our CEO's comment regarding an amount, are we going to bring an amount back at the next council meeting or something of that nature? Is this what the intent is? The reason why I ask is that we've been through this, and Councillor Hanley can remember that we put dollar amounts. And we put, I can remember 10,000 being one of the figures, plus moving costs for any physician that might move into the clinic, for instance. So I'm not sure what we want to do about this, because if we're going to go ahead and do what Councillor Decker is asking us to do, is we should have some sort of incentive, whether it's the dollar amount or what, sooner than the March budget.
Go ahead.
Through the mayor to members of council, I think that would be included in the report that the manager of economic development brings back, and then he can provide some recommendations and council can speak to it at that point.
I would say wait for the report and the direction. That's what I would. But.
Okay. The second comment I have, though, is Councillor Longo brought up a good point, bonusing. Can you maybe clarify whether this is bonusing that we're passing here tonight?
Well, we're not talking, that third part on the amendment regarding the city is not relating to any specific clinic, okay? It's a general report back, okay?
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Councillor Hanley.
Just remember, it was $10,000 a year for 5 years for a total of $50,000 and $5,000 for moving expenses. And you had to be committed to stay in the city for the 5-year period or you wouldn't get the money. It was paid per year. 10, 10, 10, and we had a contract. I'm sure that some senior staff could retrieve the documents as we did it back then, but that's how it was. I believe it was 10,000 for 5 years, and
our director
I'm not certain the amount, but I think it might have been 5,000 for moving. Maria would help us.
Our director of finance.
Through Mr. Mayor, it was 10 up front, 10 for moving expenses, and then 10 a year for 5 years. So the total, the maximum compensation package at that point over the 5 years was $70,000.
Right. Okay. And go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the Director of Finance. Do you recall what year that was?
No, I'm sorry, I don't, Councilor Longer. I can get back to you. I know that we did it over a number of years. And I think that probably in terms of the uptake, I think there were a number of doctors. I believe there were 4 doctors that we were able to attract. And that was probably over the 4-year period. But
Thank you.
yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember what year it was.
Anyone else? Okay, so now you see the motion. It's the original motion with the addition. Read the last part again, please. I want everybody to be clear here.
Sure. Through the mayor to members of council, it is that council requests the manager of economic development to report back on any incentives for doctor recruitments within the city of Thorold.
Okay. Is everybody good with that? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Councillor DeRose. Discussion regarding correspondence from Brock University regarding off-student campus behavior of students.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, after reading the reply from the president of Brock, I was a little dismayed when I read the second to last paragraph. Mr. Mayor, can I just repeat it for council? Because I'd like some input from council members. Is it all right to read that second to last paragraph?
Yep, everybody got it, so yeah.
Okay. We are committed to reviewing jurisdictional scale and scope considerations related to the Brock University Student Code of Conduct. It is our current understanding that our jurisdiction to intervene in behavioral issues occurring off campus is limited to activities that have a direct nexus to the safety and security of the campus community, occur as part of a university sanctioned event, or involved in an official student group or organization. So that's the paragraph that kind of troubled me, because basically it has nothing in there that says there's consequences for any occurrences toward residents of Thorold. And that's what I read into that. Unless it's Brock related, it seems like we're being dismissed. That's my opinion. So I wanted to ask for a motion to communicate to Brock University that their student code of conduct be amended so that the university can intervene on behavioral issues occurring off campus and apply stricter penalties for repeat offenders. So I just want to stress, reading that paragraph over a whole bunch of times, I don't like it, and I don't think it's respectful of Thorold residents.
So
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and I'll just want to give you some information on that. They do, they are reviewing it. If you look at the first part of that paragraph, and secondly, they are dealing, if someone gets charged and there's a criminal offense, then they can, then they have the teeth to act on that. I agree that the part that I've always been pushing and I continue to push for is the last line, apply stricter penalties to repeat offenders. So the repeat addresses that we have issues with, I definitely agree that there should be some teeth there, that the repeat addresses should be some sort of way that that they can have stricter measures on that for sure. But anyway, that's just giving you where they're at. Councillor Senton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with what you're saying, Councillor DeRose. We have a down and gown meeting on the 25th, and personally, I'm just going to keep pushing that. They do have student housing in Thorold. That's what they have there. You can look at it in any way or word it any other way. It's a Brock student housing they have there, and the penalty should be the same on campus or over there. So we just got to keep pushing.
And
Thank you.
I can tell you something else that's transpiring, and it should be happening very within a day or two, is letters going out to all the landlords as well from the city of Thorold, just so you're aware. Okay? That'll be coming from our chief building official. And go ahead, Councillor Longo. I seen your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This issue comes up far too often in the city of Thorold, and it's becoming an issue, it seems like, in every university town. Something that I would request you bring back to the next town and gown meeting with Brock University, or have a one-on-one conversation with them. It came out of Queens, and I read in the newspaper that Queens University makes a voluntary payment to the city of $350,000 a year to cover additional costs that the local municipality encounters. As you know, we get nothing from Brock University or the provincial government to house all the students in Thorold, and I think we need to ask them directly for money. These letters are very nice, and as Councillor DeRose read it, there's a lot of words in it, but there's not a lot of actions. And this continues to cost the city of Thorold time, money, and effort year after year. And I think we need to ask them for financial contributions to offset our costs in the city of Thorold. And I would hope you do that at the next meeting for us. But then again, I'm just one person asking.
No, that's a very good point, and we will definitely bring that forward, Councillor Longo. Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Yes, I concur with Councillor Longo. It has been happening. You know, as the students grew, so did the trouble for the residents grow. It's been a concern from the day when there's only 1,000 students around, then 2,000, then 3,000, the old days of the downtown, the Front Street bars. And I'd like what Councillor DeRose had mentioned before. Maybe we should be investigating and seeing about implementing a fine system, a stringent fine system, so it puts a point out to the landlords, because it's basically the landlords and that stuff with the students. We need to start tackling it somewhere with significant hits. You know, it's just been the same story. It's great wording in that letter as stated by Councillor DeRose. And, you know, Councillor Neal's been here for a long time too. As the students grow, the trouble's growing. And it's never been really addressed. It's been hopscotch and skipped around and not really the hammer hitting the head of the nail and something actually being done about it and driven it into the wood.
Thank you, Councillor Hanley. Councillor Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I agree with all the comments that have been made over the last couple of minutes. And I think that we should ask Brock University to get a legal opinion on the conflict of interest, on them being able to.
You're talking about code of conduct.
It doesn't need
code of conduct.
Outside influence in order for them to use their code of conduct to have a student expelled or stop a class or whatever. And I think that they should at least get a legal opinion on how far they can go off campus in order to keep students under control. Councillor Longo explained it, that you know, Windsor, London, Queens, they've all had a lot more than what we've had. But we want to keep our students under control, I'll call it. And right now, we're having a problem. As Councillor Hanley said, I've been at this since the university was a youngster with about 5,000 students there. And we've had troubles all the way along, and it's never been really solved. I don't think it can, from my personal opinion, I don't think it can be completely solved, but at least we can keep it under control. And the landlord situation is where I think we can really keep it under control.
I agree, Councillor. Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we move on to delegations to report. I've got Michael T. Larkin of Larkin Plus. Is he going to speak first? Is he here? And then after that, we have William Highcomb of Upper Canada Consultants, and this is regarding PDS 2021-28, Rolling Meadows Phases 14 to 16, OPA, ZBA, and Draft Plan of Subdivision Modification. Go ahead. Up first, Michael, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council for hearing me tonight. I'm appearing before you representing Niagara Meadows, Inc., who recently purchased the Fars Holding Inc. property, which is adjacent to the Rolling Meadows subdivision lands. The new owners intend to continue with the development of the former Fars project. Just to remind council, the Fars received draft plan approval this past March 23rd for the lands known as the Upper Grove subdivision. We are currently working with the new owners to undertake the detailed engineering design of the servicing and infrastructure, address the conditions of draft approval, and ultimately receive final approval and plan registration for the subdivision. We are appearing tonight before you to address the proposed modifications to the Rolling Meadows phases 14 and 16 OPA, ZBA, and draft plan of subdivision. I have provided Mr. Mayor a letter to council explaining our concerns. Two of the items I mentioned, namely the proposed revisions to the plan related to Crystalina Drive and the alignment of Uppers Lane, we are in general support of. Regarding the revisions to the Rolling Meadows draft plan, I have cautioned in my formal submission that the modifications to the lotting pattern adjacent to Uppers Grove may pose an issue in relationship to the alignment of the proposed Harbright Avenue on the Rolling Meadows draft plan with Street B on the approved Upper Grove subdivision. The intersections, Mr. Mayor, are shown on the two draft plans are offset approximately 22 meters. So the alignment of Upper Grove Street B, where it intersects with Uppers Lane, was established through the draft approval of the Fars subdivision this past March. The alignment of Harbright Avenue, where it intersects with Upper Lane, is the subject of the current approval request, and respectfully should be reviewed should the city wish to align the intersections on Uppers Lane where possible. If there is to be no change to the alignment of Upper Grove Street B, we have no issues with this particular matter. The final matter I raised in my submission to council is a bit more detailed in terms of the conditions of approval for the Rolling Meadows subdivision before you tonight. The issue relates to the requirement for landowners within the Rolling Meadows secondary plan area to enter into a cost-sharing agreement before council will grant final approval. Whereas this requirement is incorporated in the Uppers Grove draft approval conditions, it unfortunately has been omitted from the Rolling Meadows draft conditions. Respectfully, we believe that in the interest of full transparency, fairness, and equity, there should be a condition in the Rolling Meadows draft conditions requiring the owner to enter into a cost-sharing agreement for the Rolling Meadows, as is for the Uppers Grove subdivision, as further outlined in my letter. That's the core of my presentation, Mr. Mayor. I'm available to answer any questions of council if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and I'll open the floor for questions. I see Councillor Hanley. Go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask you when did you purchase the land?
My clients purchased the land in the summer from Fars Holdings Inc., who I previously represented for their draft approval.
Are you aware if there is another sale to happen soon?
My clients have advised me there's no sale to be happened. I know that we're working with their architects on unit design and their engineers on the design of the servicing and infrastructure. So I don't think it's very likely that they would be selling the land.
Because there is an advertisement in Living Real Estate, Thorold, Niagara, Ontario. Major intersection of Davis Road and Lundy's Lane, total land approximately 37.079 acres, Lundy's Lane. And it talks about draft plan approved, completely freehold, single detached, open space reserves. I believe that's the land, approximately 15.343 acres. And this is an active real estate thing right now.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have talked to my clients because I was aware that there have been some rumors about a sale. They've categorically advised me that they are not selling the lands. They are proceeding with development, and to hire architects to develop or to design unit types speaks pretty much to their intent to develop. So I can't, or they can't control what's in that document, I guess, Councillor Hadley. But as far as I know, they're proceeding with the development.
Okay, well, the land is actively for sale, just to let you know that. And you're asking for a condition that's a draft plan, because this came up because our staff, they put that condition in place in the draft plan to make sure individuals as your client pay rolling metals for benefiting for the infrastructure that was constructed. Because when I looked at this originally, I was thinking, why would you be worried about cost sharing? Because you're not ever going to be the one actually supplying the infrastructure. It's going to be rolling metals that's going to be supplying the infrastructure to you. Because I remember particularly bringing this up, that if Uppers Lane would have carried right through, this is when we done the roundabout issue and that stuff, and they were acquiring a piece of land that we sold quite cheaply. And that's the thing. So for me, see, rolling metals won't owe your client any money, nor will your client have to construct infrastructure that will benefit rolling metals. So to have that part of his plan of subdivision, I don't think is necessary. It's there for you because you're going to have to get the infrastructure from him. So it's not necessary for him to have it in his rolling metals. So I think therefore the purpose would be to serve putting the condition in the rolling metals draft plan. That's what I wrote here. I think the only reason would be to make the property more sellable possibly, and then down the road, if Mr. Gordon came to your client and said, I want $1 million to put the infrastructure there, you could battle and say, no, we're only going to give you $250. So that's my concern with this, because we dealt with this a while back, and that was and I brought that up, that if Mr. Gordon shut you off, you can't develop that property because he's the man running the sewer and the water. So that's my concern, and my concern actually is, so I don't support your proposal of putting rolling metals as part of being for cost sharing agreement. I don't agree with it, especially when I see the property actively for sale, because I can remember, I believe it was Councillor Wilson and other councils brought up, we're giving the land away for cheap, and they're going to start selling it and making profit off, and it's already been sold once. Now it's up for sale to be sold again.
Okay,
so
Councillor,
that's my comment towards the issue that's before us here tonight.
Well, if I may,
let's limit
respond
this
to
to
that,
questions because the comments can come when the report comes on the floor, okay? So let's limit this to questions.
May I respond though, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Hadley, when the FAR's draft plan was being discussed with staff and with the city and Mr. Gordon at the time, and that was earlier this year. In fact, it was FAR's that suggested to Mr. Gordon that a cost-sharing agreement should be put in place, recognizing the significant contribution that he has made to the Rolling Meadows secondary plan area. In fact, the city helped contact a number of owners within their secondary plan area to see and invite whoever would be interested in participating in the development of that cost-sharing agreement. The question as to who will benefit from infrastructure, that's not been determined yet, and that's in fact what is determined through the development of a cost-sharing agreement that identifies what infrastructure any of the landowners may put in place that would benefit other owners. And that would include not just the physical infrastructure, but parks and so on, that would therefore allow other developers or other landowners not to have to put the same infrastructure in place. So Mr. Gordon at the time indicated an interest in that process, in that cost-sharing agreement, and that in fact is going to be underway as soon as we can get the parties together, and that will protect anybody. So that'll also, through that process, define who owes what to whom and how much, so that just as you mentioned, Mr. Gordon could be held for ransom if someone didn't want to pay. If it's in a cost-sharing agreement that's administered by a third party, and the city requires that third party to verify that, in fact, the owner who wants to register their plan has paid their fair share contribution-wise to whomever it's supposed to go to, then all parties are protected. And the amount is established in a finite dollar. It's not left open. So Mr. Gordon conceivably could do the same thing. He could say, no, I don't want X number of dollars. I want X plus dollars to allow you to connect. So it protects all parties, and it saves the city from getting involved in messy situations that they wouldn't otherwise not want to be involved in, disputes between landowners. So that's why the cost sharing agreement is important. We encourage Mr. Gordon to work together with my client and the other landowners to develop that cost sharing agreement. But as I said, for fairness and equity, what's good for one party should be good for all. And Mr. Gordon, if he's sincere about it, he shouldn't have an issue signing the cost sharing agreement once it's in place.
Thank you, Michael. Councillor Henry, do you have a question? No comments, questions only. If you want to comment, we can comment when the report.
Do you have an agreement with Mr. Gordon now? And if not, why not have an agreement first before you brought this forward to council's attention, what you wish to have done?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've been trying to contact Mr. Gordon since my new client purchased the property and have basically been rebuffed in our approaches to him and his consultants. So we are continuing to attempt that, and I don't know whether it's a misunderstanding or whatever, but we are serious in working with Mr. Gordon. I personally have worked with Mr. Gordon through FARS and have had fairly good relations with him. And I'm just hoping that we'll be able to get this issue resolved quickly as possible.
Thank you.
As far as the potential sale of the property, this is not my information, and certainly my client is, unless my client would be not telling me the truth, which I doubt, have that. So my client is serious about wanting to move forward with the project.
Thank you. Okay, I had Councillor Wilson up next, then Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you too, Michael. I guess my question would be, what I find this a far stretch, but what is it that you believe your client, Glenn Gordon, Rolling Meadows, would owe your client? What are some things, like, in order for you to ask us to add this to him to a cost sharing agreement, which would stop him from starting his new development, right? Unless your client is in agreement with him, then what is it that you are perceiving that he would owe your client or benefit from in this cost sharing? A park?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, the items in the cost sharing agreement have not been identified yet. The overall servicing hasn't been costed out. The overall facilities haven't been costed out. So that I can't give you a formal number to that. There should be no delay for Mr. Gordon in registering a subdivision. Just as my client, there should be no delay in them registering a subdivision if the parties are willing and move forward on getting the cost sharing agreement in place, which can be done in relatively short order. So we're hoping to have those conversations imminently, as soon as we can get the parties together to have those discussions and clarify things.
Okay, thank you. Let's stay on task, which is the amendment regarding that. And
that is on task, Mr. Mayor. He's suggesting that his client would be owed money, and so I'm wondering why we would include that clause, because Rolling Meadows has already put all those, not services specifically to each lot, but all of that is, all those pipes, everything is, all the infrastructure is there underground already that they are going to take advantage of. So I do see why our staff suggested this be in place. I don't understand what they think they would possibly be out. So I won't ask any more questions.
No, because you're right. That's the agreement that's in place already, Councillor Wilson.
No, I understand that, but if you read what they're asking is then so that Rolling Meadows can't move forward with the subdivision plan approval unless they have all come to an agreement, which obviously he stands to lose the most. So it just seems fishy to me.
Thank you, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Larkin. Mr. Larkin, this is a little bit confusing, so I hope you can clarify for me. You say that cost sharing agreement is necessary and desirable to move forward here. Without a cost sharing agreement, if the two parties can't agree, would a third party force them into an agreement? Or is this something that could carry on forever?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In situations like this, where you have a large area like the secondary plan area with multiple ownerships, it is common in the development industry to have cost sharing agreements that clarify who put in what for the benefit of everybody else, what the value is, how they're compensated, interest escalation, everything else. It's all in those agreements. It's a common thing in the development sector. The intent is that everyone is treated fairly, and no one particular person can hold for ransom anybody else in the landowners group, provided that everybody is playing by the same rules. So whereas FARs recognized early on that there are infrastructure and services and facilities that Mr. Gordon has contributed, and we're thankful for that, they want to make sure that they will pay their fair share, which will be established through a cost-sharing agreement. The process to establish that agreement, typically the landowners engage a third-party consultant that's not related to any of the other particular parties. And they do an assessment, they hire the engineers, they look at all the information that Mr. Gordon's consultants would provide in terms of the costing, my clients would provide in terms of their costing, and they'll come up with a table and a mechanism as to, okay, again, who owes what to whom, how much, and when it's to be paid. Then typically what happens is that the parties agree that the city will withhold final approval of any, which is registration, of any plan of subdivision until they receive a certificate from that third party, who is the trustee, if you will, that owner has made either all their contributions or made arrangements acceptable to the landowners group to make those contributions. So they're not necessarily all paid up at front, but there's an agreement as to when it's done. So the idea is everyone's treated fairly, and no one will turn around and say, well, I'm going to hold you for ransom now and not allow you access to my sewers or whatever, or it's going to cost more money than would be fair. And this is not just for Mr. Gordon, it's for anybody. So presumably my client, there'll be people, other properties to the west and to the north, to the east and to the north, that'll be coming through his property as well. So he's going to have to oversize his sewers, which will then accommodate their infrastructure. So it works for everybody. It goes all down the line. And where this is done, the municipalities, it saves municipalities from getting involved in potentially nasty legal issues or battles, or getting in place, on behalf of one developer versus another. The city can take a neutral stance, say, look, you've worked it out through your cost sharing agreement, the owners have agreed to it, and so on. Final thing I want to say about the cost sharing agreement is if there are disputes, and sometimes there could be disputes, there's a mechanism in the cost sharing agreement for arbitration and working it out as well that the owners agree to. So the intent is to make the development of large areas like Rolling Meadows as seamless for the municipality as possible once the original decisions were made by approving the secondary plan. So that's what the intent here is. And all we're asking is that Mr. Gordon has the same condition that FARs or anybody else would have, that they enter into this cost sharing agreement so it can be clear, transparent, and equitable.
So, sir, you just said that the idea is to keep the municipality out of the middle of this, yet we're right in the middle here. So I'm a little confused. Is this between the municipality and your client and Rolling Meadows, or is this between your client and Rolling Meadows?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Longo, you're only in the middle by virtue of the fact that you are arbitrating whether or not to issue draft approval or amendment to draft approval. That'll never change, of course, because anybody that comes forward will be submitting applications. So the only challenge, perhaps, is that the question as to whether or not all the owners in the secondary plan area should be treated equally, as we're suggesting. Notwithstanding, I appreciate the comments made by other councillors, but I truly believe that's not the case. No one's trying to take advantage. I don't even think Mr. Gordon's trying to take advantage. It's just a question of what's the best way, and let's try to get this cost sharing agreement off on a good foot, where everybody's working together to make it happen. And it can happen very quickly, as I said, once the parties are working together. So that shouldn't affect anybody's final approval, because there's still lots of work to do between draft approval and final approval, as you can appreciate.
Okay, so just my last question then. You mentioned you've been trying to contact Rolling Meadows and you haven't had any success. What happens if that continues?
Well, Councillor Longo, I'm hoping that Mr. Gordon, I'm not sure why he hasn't responded, other than to say that he thought the lands were for sale as well, and wanted to know how much they were. And again, that's not the case. We've offered, we've invited him to meet at his schedule, whatever works for him. His consultants, we're trying to talk to as well, because we needed to discuss with them servicing matters in terms of the design of my client's subdivision infrastructure. What happens if he doesn't come to the table? Well, I don't really know what happens if he doesn't come to the table. I would not want to see this escalate into an ugly situation where people have started appealing each other's applications. I mean, that's not helpful to anybody. And certainly, my client has indicated to me a willingness to work with Mr. Gordon and sit down. Because I explained to them when they were talking about retaining our services to carry on with the project, the history with FARS and how we'd worked with Mr. Gordon to address a lot of his, I thought at the time, a lot of his issues, so that we could get finally council's approval, which happened this year. So I'm hoping you've got Mr. Haikup on after me. Maybe he'll confirm that they're willing to work with my client. And I'm hoping that we can get this rolling, no pun intended, so that we can address all these issues and move forward as good neighbors.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor? Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
I just have one last question.
Yeah.
Mr. Larkin, if you represented the previous owner, then why didn't you bring up this concern then prior to them selling to your new client?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't involved in any discussions about the sale of the land with the new owners. It only happened after this deal had been struck. I was actually away all summer anyway, so but that's neither here nor there. So I can't tell you. I did, as soon as they said they had purchased the property. My previous client, FARS, asked me to give them a briefing, the new client a briefing, which I did. I told them where things stood. At the time, I was quite optimistic that we were working things out with Mr. Gordon, and I reflected that to them.
Sorry. I think you misunderstood my question. I apologize to interrupt you, but what I meant was, if you were involved, if you were employed by the previous owner, yes, and when this agreement was put into place, saying that there was going to be a cost sharing agreement, why did you not bring up the concern that it was not addressed to your client as well?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we believe there would be, actually, because when we talked to staff, we thought this was going to be in all subdivision conditions moving forward. So I was surprised when I saw that it wasn't, and a bit disappointed. There's a condition in the draft conditions before you that actually require the city to require my client and other developers to enter into a subdivision agreement. It encumbers the city to do that, which on the face of it is okay. I mean, why would someone not want to enter into the cost sharing agreement? But it doesn't, it omits the reference to requiring Rolling Meadows to do the same thing, to enter into the cost sharing agreement. That makes it more difficult, perhaps, to deal with preparing a cost sharing agreement if we have a party that is reluctant or not willing to enter into that agreement. And that's a bit contrary to my original discussions with Mr. Gordon. And I could have been mistaken, but I thought he was amicable to entering into the cost sharing agreement.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Michael. And now we're going to move on to William Haikup from Upper Canada Consultants. William, are you there?
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I wanted to make myself available to answer any questions any of the councillors or you, Mr. Mayor, may have. In response to the previous delegation, my client, Rolling Meadows Land Development Corporation, does not agree with the condition as worded, and as suggested, that should be included in the draft approval. This condition would prohibit the further implementation of the Rolling Meadows subdivision ahead of a cost-sharing agreement being completed. My client has always maintained a willingness to work with the city and all landowners in the Rolling Meadows secondary plan area to accomplish a cost-sharing agreement that will ultimately lead to the reimbursement to him for the significant upfront investment in infrastructure. Currently, one of the sticking points in completing such an agreement is the ongoing appeal on the DC bylaw for Barker Parkway. That appeal would have a significant change in the amount and the logistics into what would go into that cost sharing agreement. And ultimately, my client doesn't want to have to pay to have that cost sharing agreement done twice. So therefore, I respectfully request that council approve the report as recommended by city staff. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, William. Are there questions for William? Seeing none, we'll move on to the report. Oh, you had a question. Sorry, Councillor Longo. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, there's a lot to this report. It's a big report. And in this report, it talks about a request of Rolling Meadows, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, to reduce commercial space.
Well, we're going to bring the report on the floor, and then you can speak to that. I thought you were here to ask a question of William.
Well, I am. I'm asking him about his client's request to reduce commercial space.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Yes, we went through the public meeting process. At that time, it was evident that there was some concern from the local area residents about the reduced commercial space. After several discussions with staff, we hired a third-party consultant to investigate and determine the amount of commercial space remaining that would be included within the Village Square commercial area. The conclusion of that report was that the proposed space of approximately 30,000 square feet, about 12 to 15 different individual businesses, depending on the size, would be sufficient to service the Rolling Meadows area.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Heikoop, you mentioned a report, and you did a study, and I read that in the report, but yet I haven't seen the study. Is that available? Like, what parameters were used to determine how much commercial space is required now or in the future when it's fully built out?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, they undertook an inventory of all the existing commercial space within the area, the proposed commercial space, and rationalized that between several different other core commercial areas in surrounding neighborhoods and communities. So they used those other areas as a bar or a threshold, if you will, to determine whether or not this matches or meets up to similar requirements. So the conclusion was that this would be enough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Heikoop, in the report, it seems like the biggest concern is this commercial block, which was originally planned, and now is going to be cut back significantly. Many residents have concerns about it, saying they bought lots and homes in the area based on this becoming a community per se, where they can do their shopping and so on. How do you respond to them when they were told one thing and now it's planned to be changed into something else?
Through Mr. Mayor to the councillor. So I think the large component of this is the viability of that commercial space. So I understand that there was originally planned to be that mixed use commercial space. I think that's a little bit of a misnomer that was within the community, that it was all pure commercial when it was really mixed use commercial. But furthermore, it comes down to the viability of that commercial space. if there's not the sufficient residents or people to support those businesses, often they become derelict, run down, vacant. So this exercise was in a large way an accounting exercise to understand whether or not there is enough space, and if there was too much, whether or not the remaining space would be viable to afford those businesses to thrive, survive, and provide services to the surrounding community.
So the commercial space that we're asked to take away from this community, what is it going to become?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, there is one block that is going to be a parkette and street towns and single detached dwellings. So that was one of the mixed use commercial blocks. And the second mixed use commercial block is going to be a full park.
Okay, so we're going to take away commercial and put more residential housing in an area that's already quite large. And maybe this is a comment, but we're going to take away a commercial tax base and replace it with a residential tax base that's not as isn't as beneficial to the city. Would you agree with that?
From the city's perspective, from a tax-based perspective, what you're saying is correct. However, if those commercial businesses were to not survive and the business case and the feasibility of those businesses aren't there, it begs the question whether that would be taxable income coming to the city. So we're really just trying to balance the need for the commercial. We've done that study and determined the appropriate amount of need, and now feel that the balance of that land should be used in the most appropriate fashion.
Thank you. I'm just trying to balance the needs of the community. So I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Longo. Councillor Sentence.
Are we going to bring this report forward, or I don't have a question?
When we're done with questions, the report will come forward. Right now,
we have something when it comes forward.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, thank you so much, William. And now we're going to bring PDS 2021-28 Rolling Meadow Phases 14 to 16 OPA ZBA and draft plan of subdivision modification. And I'm going to get Bryn to bring the report forward, senior planner, and then we'll open the floor. Okay? Go ahead, Bryn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report, as mentioned, is PDS 2021-2028. The public meeting related to this application was held June 1st, 2021, where, as discussed, there was a few concerns regarding the commercial component. This recommendation report recommends that the report be received and that the red line revision to the draft plan of subdivision, which is attached as Appendix A to the report, be approved, subject to the modified conditions, which are attached as Appendix B. That the draft plan approval be given for 3 years, after which approval will lapse unless an extension is requested. And that, as per Section 5147 of the Planning Act, the red line revisions to the draft plan are deemed to be minor changes, and that further written notice is not required. Also, that the mayor designate be authorized to sign the modified draft plan dated February 2021 as approved 20 days after the notice of council's decision, and that the official plan amendment to change the designation of the subject lands from Rolling Meadows Village Square commercial, residential, open space and parks from institutional to residential, from residential to institutional and open space and parks, and from open space and parks to residential be approved, and that the bylaw amendment to zoning bylaw 2140-97 as detailed in the recommendation and in accordance with Appendix C of the report be approved, and that the zoning bylaw amendment to zoning bylaw 60/2019 as to zone the lands as detailed in the recommendation and in accordance with Appendix C of the report be approved, and that council require no further public notice in accordance with Section 3417 of the Planning Act. Those are the recommendations, and if you have any questions, just let me know.
Okay, so I had a mover, Councillor Hanley, and a seconder, Councillor DeRose, and I'll open the floor, Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to poll or ask to defer number 6 in this report and have it brought back as a full report from staff. And after what we heard from Mr. Haiku, maybe they could include their information in there. I'm uncomfortable with this, changing this. I would just like to see it as a separate full report come back, please.
So you want to pull number 6 and ask that a full report come back from planning
Yes.
regarding that. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Longo. So I have a mover, Councillor Sentence, and a seconder, Councillor Sentence, that item 6 be pulled and that it come back with a comprehensive staff report on that item. Is that everybody good with that? Does anyone want to speak to that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that is carried. So that's item 6. Now, again, open the floor for the rest of the report and any questions. Bryn's here for questions or discussion on the rest of the report. Go ahead, I open the floor. Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Ms. O'Neill. Can we get some comments, some clarification on the cost-sharing agreement and the concerns of the previous delegate?
Through the mayor, yes. So the draft plan conditions for the Rolling Meadows subdivision, specifically for this, is phase 14 and 16. They don't include the specific cost-sharing condition that Mr. Larkin was referencing, that is within the Uppers Grove subdivision conditions. However, there's another condition in those conditions for Rolling Meadows that addresses the need for cost-sharing. It is our opinion that the conditions should remain as proposed.
Councillor Long,
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, I guess. Okay, I have no further questions at this time.
Okay, is there anyone else that has any questions? Okay, see, now we're gonna, this is a mover, Councillor Hanley, seconder, Councillor DeRose, and we take the rest of this report. All those in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Okay. Now we move on to, go ahead, Councillor Kenny. You're muted.
I just wanted to ask our planner how long that was going to take to come back with that report so the residents will know.
You're talking about the report that we pulled for and asked for staff report. Bryn, are you there that you can give some timelines to Councillor Kenny's question? Or Paul's here. Go ahead, Paul. And Denise, we got full team here.
We got the full team.
Go ahead,
Good evening,
Paul.
through you.
I'll let you answer that one.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. We will endeavor to get this report back to council before the end of the year. I think we should be able to get to council in December at some point.
Does that answer your
Okay, that's
question?
good, because we heard loud and clear from them, so it'd be good to get back as quick as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Okay, so now we're going to move on. I have Daniel Venturuzzo. I would probably pronounce that wrong. I'll get the right pronunciation when he comes on. He's a partner at Versus Designs, and that's regarding PDS 2021-49, request for council resolution to allow for minor variance application, Rolling Meadows Phase 15. And Daniel, can you please pronounce your last name? Because I don't want to look like I butchered it.
Venturuzzo.
Thank you. Okay, Daniel, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Daniel Ventruzzo. I'm the designer for Rolling Meadows Phase 15. The purpose of our application is to obtain a resolution from council to allow for a minor variance application to be submitted. A Planning Act amendment was approved in 2015 that places a moratorium on minor variance applications being submitted from the date of passing on the site-specific bylaw amendment. This would mean that we'd have to wait till March 23rd, 2023 to apply for the minor variance without this resolution. Rolling Meadows Phase 15 consists of 15 townhouse blocks and a total of 62 townhouse units. We are requesting to receive a resolution to allow for the owners to apply for minor variances for the entire Phase 15 lands if required. After the September 21st, 2021 council meeting, we have had a number of discussions with staff. Through those discussions, there were additional variances identified outside of blocks 1 and 11, which were previously approved with a resolution in that last council meeting. To date, we've addressed these issues, but are asking for this resolution to have the ability to apply for minor variance should staff still have any outstanding comments. We respectfully request this resolution to be approved. We thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, so I'll open up the floor for questions for Daniel regarding PDS 2021-49. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenter. Just so I'm clear here, I understand we passed a new comprehensive zoning bylaw, so you're not allowed to ask for minor variances. But you're not asking for anything specific, just for the right to ask for minor variances?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, yes, we are. We're asking for permission. We want to make sure that should the staff find any other issues with the site, that we can apply for minor variances in a timely manner. So we're asking for council's resolution to allow us to apply for those minor variances now for future in case we have any issues with lots. There were some issues with the lots when they got drafted up. There were some irregularities in lots, which might present some area issues that we want to make sure that we can get covered in a minor variance application.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, through you to staff member, would these minor variances come back to council or would they go to the Committee of Adjustment?
Go ahead, Denise.
Through the mayor to Councillor Longo, if council permits the applicant to apply for a minor variance tonight, then they can apply directly to the committee and it would not come back to council.
Okay, and thank you, Denise. While I have you here, so staff is recommending we do this. Like, I'm a little confused. If the rule is not to allow opening up applications for minor variances for anything, why do we even have the rule?
Through council, through the mayor to Councillor Longo, it's a rule in the Planning Act, so it's not a City of Thorold rule. It's a rule through Ontario law that we can't allow minor variances to go forward without council's approval. So it's not a Thorold rule. It's a Planning Act rule.
Okay, so I guess my last question is, if we do this tonight, we're basically saying to any developer or anybody that Thorold City Council allows this, so just ask for it.
Through the mayor to the councillor, it is allowing permission for them to apply. It's not giving them permission to actually receive a variance. That still has to go through the tests in our planning staff review. There's tests under the Planning Act that we have to assess the application. This is just simply allowing them to apply. It does not mean that they will receive support from the Committee of Adjustment or from staff. Those have to be assessed as they come in.
I understand, but wouldn't it be safe to say that if we do this for this client, then we are obligated to do it for everybody else?
Through the mayor to Councillor Longo, no, not necessarily. Say a property owner or an applicant, a developer, received a zoning amendment on a property, and later down the road or shortly after, they tried to use it as a mechanism to not have to include certain provisions in a zoning amendment. So the purpose is that they don't go to council, get a zoning amendment, but don't include provisions that council might not like, and then just apply for a minor variance just to get those through committee. So it's really a mechanism to prevent developers from kind of skirting the process essentially and skirting council approval and just going straight to committee of adjustment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, I've got a mover, Councillor Hanley, and a seconder, Councillor DeRose. And Denise, are you going to bring this forward?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The recommendations of report PDS 2021-49 is that the report to be received and that council permits the owners to apply for minor variance applications for Rolling Meadows Phase 15 on Plan 59M 494 as per Section 45(1.4) of the Planning Act. And this concludes the report. Thank you.
Any further questions to the report or any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you very much.
Okay, up next I have consent reports. There's 2 consent reports, I believe. Yes, 15A and 15B. Are we taking them as a block? Anyone want to pull anything there? Seeing none, I got a mover, Councillor Longo, and a seconder, Councillor Sentence, that we take DF 2021-40 accounts payable September 2021 and CC 2021-51 council correspondence for October 19th, 2021 meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Discussion reports. PDS 2021-43 city initiated housekeeping amendment to zoning bylaw 2140-97 related to Artisan Ridge subdivision. I have a mover, Councillor Wilson, and a seconder, Councillor Kenny. And Bryn, our senior planner, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is related to a zoning bylaw amendment initiated by city staff for Artisan Ridge subdivision. The recommendation is that Planning and Development Services Report PDS 2021-43 be received, and that the city-initiated zoning bylaw amendment to zoning bylaw 2140-97 be approved.
Any discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
We just need a different mover as Councillor Wilson is no longer on the meeting.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry about that. I've got, can I get a mover, Councillor Neal? And a seconder, I have Councillor Kenny. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. But no, notice is a motion. Go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
And notice the motion forward at the next meeting in regards to the 2022 budget deliberations.
And you'll work with the city clerk on that?
I may be able to handle it myself, but if I need help, I'll reach out to her.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead to the clerk.
Sorry, through the mayor to members of council, bylaw 99 will need to be pulled as it refers to the portion of the report, the planning report that had been deferred.
Okay, but what one is that? I'll wait till I get there 1 sec. Okay, that's it. Okay, we move on to bylaws. So, excuse me again, what was that? Sorry. Bylaw 18A 90, what? Okay, 18A2, bylaw 99, 2021. So we're pulling that. We're pulling that bylaw, and that was because we pulled a section of that report, okay? Remember, and that was because we pulled item 6, am I correct? Okay. Okay, first reading of the bylaws. Mover, Councillor Decker. Seconder, Councillor Neal, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw 98, 2021, bylaw 100, 2021, Bylaw 101, 2021, Bylaw 104, 2021, and Bylaw 108, 2021, and that now be read a first time. All those in favor? Well, go ahead, Councillor Kenny. What's up?
Isn't the one we should be pulled is number 4? Not number 1? Or not number 2, it should be number 4?
No, I think number 4 was the second report. Yeah, it was the second report, not the first report. Bylaw 99, 2021 was the one the clerk tells me that we had to pull. Okay? Is there anyone else questioning that? Any? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Final reading of the bylaw. Moved by Councillor Decker and seconded by Councillor Neal that the bylaws just read a first time be read a second and third time and do pass, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, and now we're going to move into closed meeting. I have a mover. I need a mover because Councillor Wilson isn't here. I got Councillor Hanley, and I have a seconder here, Councillor Longo. That council move into closed at 8:45 p.m. to discuss advice subject to solicitor-client privilege, 2350 Gaynor Street, verbal update, and also potential sale and disposition of land, 131 Queen Street. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So now you'll have to log out and log in under the closed session